What if I told you that the richest man in the room is not the one who has the most money, but the one who needs the least? Think about that for a moment. Because in a world obsessed with status, luxury, and financial freedom, the Stoics taught something radically different. Something so powerful that it can completely change the way you see money, success, and peace of mind. The ancient philosophers like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus didn't live in a world of crypto coins, stock markets, or luxury cars. Yet their wisdom cuts through the noise of modern chaos like a sword through fog. They knew that true wealth wasn't in the coins you stacked, but in the control you built over your desires. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people today are slaves, not to kings or empires, but to their cravings. They work jobs they hate, to buy things they don't need, to impress people they don't even like. The Stoics saw that trap over 2,000 years ago. And their financial philosophy wasn't just about saving money. It was about saving your soul. Seneca once wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." That single line holds more financial wisdom than 100 modern self-help books combined. Because if your happiness depends on an endless chase, you'll always be broke, no matter how much you earn. The Stoics knew that wealth built on craving is like a house built on sand, impressive from the outside, but ready to crumble when the first storm hits. Yet they didn't preach poverty. They weren't against wealth. Seneca himself was a millionaire in Roman terms. What they rejected was dependence. To be free, they said, is to own your wealth, not be owned by it. But how do you actually live that in a modern world where everything screams buy, upgrade, repeat? Imagine this. You wake up tomorrow and your bank account doubles overnight. For a few moments you'd feel unstoppable, but soon after that feeling fades, replaced by new desires, new comparisons, and new fears. That's the Stoic paradox of wealth. No matter how much you have, the mind can always invent new reasons to feel poor. And the reverse is also true. Even a simple life can feel abundant if your heart is disciplined. This is why Epictetus, born a slave, could say he was richer than many emperors, because his peace couldn't be bought or stolen. That's the level of mastery the Stoics aimed for. But here's the twist. Their secret wasn't about rejecting money. It was about training the mind to handle it wisely. Because money in Stoicism is neither good nor bad. It's a tool. And like any tool, it's only as good as the hand that wields it. The question is, are you the master of your finances or their prisoner? In this video, we're going to uncover the timeless financial lessons the Stoics left behind. Lessons that will teach you how to build wealth without losing your peace, how to enjoy success without becoming its slave, and how to live with such freedom that no market crash, no loss, and no debt can shake your inner stability. We'll break down how Marcus Aurelius handled power and wealth, how Seneca balanced riches with restraint, and how Epictetus, who owned nothing, lived like a king in spirit. But before we dive into their advice, there's a simple Stoic test that reveals whether your relationship with money is healthy or dangerous, and it might just surprise you. Here's the Stoic test. Can you lose everything today and still keep your peace? If your stomach tightened just reading that, you're not alone. Seneca used to run that test often, not in theory, but in practice. He would deliberately live as if he were poor, sleeping on the floor, eating the cheapest food, and wearing rough clothes. Not because he enjoyed suffering, but because he wanted to prove to himself that comfort wasn't his master. He called it a rehearsal for misfortune, training the mind to stay calm even when life strips away the illusions of control. Most people today fear financial loss more than anything else. But Seneca flipped that fear into strength. He taught that once you've faced your worst-case scenario and realized you can still stand, money loses its power over you. Think about it. How many people around you live in quiet panic, terrified of losing what they have, always needing more to feel safe? That's not wealth. That's bondage, dressed as success. We live in a society that rewards noise, not wisdom. Everywhere you look, there's someone shouting about financial freedom, yet their entire sense of worth depends on fluctuating numbers on a screen. The Stoics would look at this frenzy and shake their heads. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of the most powerful empire on earth, had every reason to drown in luxury. Yet he wrote nightly reminders to himself, "Receive wealth or prosperity without arrogance, and be ready to let it go." Imagine that. The ruler of Rome warning himself not to become a prisoner of fortune. Marcus understood a truth that most millionaires still miss. External riches mean nothing if they come at the cost of inner poverty. He trained his mind to treat gain and loss with equal calmness, to see both as temporary visitors. Because the Stoics believed that fortune, like the weather, is beyond our control, but our attitude toward it is always ours to command. But here's where it gets deeply practical for modern life. Every day, we make decisions that either strengthen or weaken our Stoic muscle. When you scroll through social media and feel envy at someone's success, that's a crack in your discipline. When you chase every new investment trend out of fear of missing out, that's not strategy. That's anxiety wearing a business suit. The Stoics would call it pathos, an emotional disturbance, and every disturbance makes you easier to manipulate. That's exactly how modern markets thrive, not on wisdom, but on your impulses. The ads you see, the sales you chase, the get-rich-fast culture, all feed the same disease the Stoics warned about, the endless hunger of the undisciplined mind. Epictetus once said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." In other words, every unnecessary desire is a silent debt, and the interest it charges is your peace of mind. Now pause and ask yourself, what if financial freedom wasn't about abundance, but indifference? What if true power came not from multiplying your possessions, but from mastering your reactions to gain and loss? That's the paradox the Stoics mastered. And it's exactly what modern thinkers struggle to grasp. They didn't measure success by profit, but by self-command. The ability to remain unshaken whether fortune smiles or storms. But there's another layer to their wisdom, something deeper that most people misunderstand. Because while Stoicism teaches detachment, it doesn't promote passivity. The Stoics were not monks hiding from the world. They were active, ambitious, and engaged. Marcus ruled an empire, Seneca advised emperors, and Epictetus taught generations of leaders. So how did they chase excellence without being consumed by greed? The answer lies in a single Stoic principle, one that turns ambition from a trap into a weapon for self-mastery. The Stoics had a word for it, arete, meaning excellence or virtue. It was the compass that guided all ambition. For them, the purpose of wealth wasn't indulgence, it was usefulness. Wealth, like fire, could warm your home or burn it down, depending on how you used it. This is what Seneca tried to teach the Roman elite who mocked his philosophy, that money itself was neutral, but the mind using it determined its moral weight. Seneca said, "Money has never made anyone rich." At first, that sounds absurd, but he meant that without virtue, without wisdom, self-restraint, and gratitude, wealth simply multiplies your weaknesses. It gives your impulses horsepower. A greedy man with money becomes greedier. An anxious man becomes more fearful. And a wise man? He becomes more capable of doing good. That's why Stoicism never rejected ambition. It simply purified it. The Stoics' goal wasn't to escape the world, but to move through it with grace, to earn without vanity, and to give without regret. Imagine a builder constructing two houses, one with marble and gold, the other with wood and clay. Most people admire the marble house. But if its foundation is weak, it will crumble long before the simpler one. Stoic ambition is about building the foundation first, character before capital. It's about asking, who am I becoming as I earn this, rather than how much will I earn? Marcus Aurelius wrote, that every action should be done as if it were your last, with integrity, focus, and purpose. That's a powerful filter for any financial decision. When you approach your work or business from that mindset, money becomes a byproduct, not the objective. You still strive, you still win, but you don't beg the world for validation. That detachment is what makes Stoic success unbreakable, because no external loss can touch a person whose worth is internal. Now picture this. Two entrepreneurs start with the same dream. One chases profits at all costs, cutting corners, lying when convenient, justifying every wrong move as strategy. The other practices Stoic ambition, discipline, honesty, service, and resilience. The first one might win fast, but his peace will corrode. The second one may grow slower, but his wealth will have roots, built on trust, purpose, and inner calm. Years later, when a crisis hits, the first collapses under the weight of his own greed, while the second endures with clarity. That's the Stoic advantage: stability. You can see the same truth in Marcus Aurelius during war, or in Seneca during exile. Men who lost everything, but never themselves. Their wealth wasn't their gold, it was their composure. But here's where Stoicism becomes practical for you. In modern life, financial ambition can become a spiritual battlefield. You'll constantly be tempted to measure yourself against others, their success, their possessions, their spotlight. The Stoics remind us that comparison is a poison that slowly empties your soul. When Epictetus said, "If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid," he was warning us that true mastery often looks unimpressive from the outside. The quiet investor, the disciplined saver, the patient builder, they rarely go viral. Yet their lives compound in ways that noise never can. So when you're tempted to chase quick validation, remember, the Stoic plays the long game. Because real wealth, both financial and emotional, grows in silence through habits that no one sees. Still, a question remains. How do we actually apply these Stoic principles in today's chaotic financial system? How do we save, invest, and spend without letting fear or greed hijack our decisions? The Stoics gave us powerful mental exercises, practical steps to train our judgment and emotions, and in the next part, we'll explore exactly how to use them in your daily financial life so you can become truly unshakable. If the first step is understanding wealth, the second is mastering your mind around it. The Stoics didn't just preach theory, they built mental armor through daily exercises, shaping calm in the middle of chaos. One of the most powerful is premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of misfortune. Before making any big financial move, they imagined the worst possible outcome. Seneca would ask himself, "What if I lose it all? What if fortune turns against me?" By rehearsing loss in the mind, he stripped it of fear. This is more than pessimism. It's psychological inoculation. When you confront the possibility of failure before it arrives, you turn panic into preparedness. Apply this to your own life. Before you invest, buy, or chase an opportunity, mentally walk through its collapse. Could you remain calm if it disappeared? If yes, you're ready. If no, you're attached. And attachment, the Stoics warned, is the first sign of weakness. Another Stoic practice was voluntary discomfort. Epictetus taught his students to occasionally go without luxury, to eat simply, sleep roughly, or fast from indulgence, so they'd remember how little they actually needed. Today, that might mean a digital detox, a month of minimalist spending, or walking instead of driving. It's not about deprivation, it's about domination. You're proving to yourself that you control your habits, not the other way around. Marcus Aurelius did this while ruling Rome. Imagine that. The emperor of the world, reminding himself to live humbly, to not drown in excess. He wrote, "It is possible to live well, even in a palace." That's the Stoic balance. Wealth, without worship. You can own luxuries, but never let them own you. Practicing discomfort keeps gratitude alive and greed in check. And gratitude, as the Stoics saw it, was the greatest wealth of all, because a grateful mind is untouchable. Then comes the practice of dichotomy of control. Every financial decision, every stress, every market crash, all of it can be divided into two categories: what's within your control and what's not. The Stoics obsessed over this distinction. Epictetus said, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens." In modern finance, that might mean you control your saving habits, your spending, your risk management, but not inflation, not interest rates, not viral market trends. Yet people lose sleep over the latter while neglecting the former. The Stoic way is the reverse. Focus your entire energy on disciplined action, then detach from the results. Ironically, that detachment often brings better outcomes because it keeps your emotions, fear and greed, from sabotaging your judgment. But here's the most underestimated Stoic habit of all: journaling. Marcus Aurelius didn't write meditations for fame. He wrote it for sanity. It was his daily financial, emotional, and moral audit. Before sleep, he'd reflect, did I act with wisdom? Did I spend with purpose? Did I let fear decide for me? Imagine doing that every night. You'd begin to see patterns: where you waste, where you worry, where you win. That's financial mindfulness at its purest form. No app, no spreadsheet, just radical honesty. And the longer you do it, the freer you become, because awareness dissolves illusion. Still, the Stoics would remind us, knowing isn't enough. Wisdom means nothing without action. Seneca said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." And that's where your true transformation begins, when philosophy stops being something you watch and starts being something you live. But there's one final Stoic insight, a secret that ties all of this together. It's not just about mastering money or fear. It's about discovering a level of freedom so deep that even fortune itself bows before you. That's what we'll uncover in the final part, the ultimate Stoic definition of wealth. So what is true wealth? The Stoics would answer with silence, not because they didn't know, but because they wanted you to see it, not hear it. True wealth, they'd say, is the ability to wake up every day and feel at peace with yourself, regardless of what the world takes or gives. It's not in your possessions, but in your power to live well without them. When Marcus Aurelius wrote, "A man's worth is no greater than the worth of his ambitions," he wasn't talking about grand plans or empire building. He meant the quality of your inner goals, whether they aim at virtue or vanity. If your ambition is noble, even a modest life glows with abundance. But if your ambition is corrupt, even a fortune feels empty. That's the great paradox of Stoic wealth. The less you depend on money for meaning, the more power you have to use it wisely. Freedom doesn't come from what you own. It comes from what you can walk away from without losing your calm. Imagine standing on a mountain, watching the world below. The markets rising and falling, people chasing, fearing, comparing. You're above it, not because you have more, but because you've learned to need less. That's what Seneca meant when he said, "He is a great man who uses earthenware as if it were silver, and silver as if it were earthenware." When you can enjoy simplicity with gratitude and luxury without arrogance, you've mastered the art of balance. Epictetus would remind his students, "Don't seek for things to happen as you wish, but wish for them to happen as they do." That's not surrender. It's supreme control. Because when you align your expectations with reality, disappointment dissolves and peace enters. That peace is the highest currency a human being can earn. And the best part? It's one you can never lose, no matter what the economy does. Now think of your own life, your job, your ambitions, your dreams. Ask yourself, are you pursuing wealth or wisdom? Are you buying peace or selling it? Every purchase, every choice, every reaction is a mirror reflecting your philosophy. The Stoics weren't against success. They simply wanted you to redefine it. They wanted you to see that the richest people are not those with overflowing accounts, but those who can sleep at night with a quiet mind. Wealth without virtue is just glitter on emptiness, but wealth guided by virtue becomes a force for good, a tool to serve, to create, to uplift. That's why Seneca said, "No man is poor who can see his true riches." The Stoic financial mindset doesn't ask you to retreat from life. It asks you to master it, to play the same game, but with unshakable calm. Because once you master your desires, fortune itself becomes your servant. So let this be your reminder. Money will test you. Success will test you even more. You'll be tempted by comfort, by greed, by comparison. But every time you resist, every time you act with discipline instead of desire, you build invisible wealth, character. And that's the one investment that never loses value. The Stoics would want you to live fully, earn honestly, give generously, and detach gracefully. To live in such a way that even if all your wealth vanished, your dignity, peace, and purpose would remain untouched. Because that is the best Stoic financial advice you'll ever hear. Own everything. Need nothing. Be free. And if you truly understand that, your life will never be the same again.